Real risk, Putin won't stop with Ukraine, NATO chief.
Here's a summary of the article.
There is a real risk that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not stop with Ukraine if he achieves military victory there, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warned on Thursday. If Putin wins in Ukraine, there is real risk that his aggression will not end there. Our support is not charity. It is an investment in our security, he said. And the only way to ensure that President Putin realizes that he is not winning on the battlefield is to continue to support Ukraine. The NATO Secretary-General's comments came as support for further aid to Ukraine faltered in the United States and the European Union as a result of internal political maneuvering. Opposition Republicans in the United States have opposed to providing more U.S. military aid, while in the EU, Hungary has held up approval of a €50 billion package to stabilize Ukraine's war-hit finances over the next 3 years. Stoltenberg's warning also came at the same moment Putin said his troops were progressing along most of the front line in Ukraine. Despite receiving weapons and ammunition from its allies, Ukraine has been unable over the past few months to make significant breakthroughs against entrenched Russian positions.
This post received a score of 8,500, with an upvote ratio of 94%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
They quite literally showed a map where they'd have invaded Moldova if they had succeeded in the initial invasion. They're literally telegraphing it to us, and yet we're still debating their intentions for some reason.
I wonder what they meant by this. I guess we'll never know.
It's a manipulation tactic. Present two undesirable options and people will often give up and select one. They presented their invasion plan for Ukraine and another larger fake plan to convince fools to settle for losing a portion of Ukraine.
It would be stupid to take either option when Russia already gave away the plot back in 2014 with Crimea. At best you'd just be getting a brief ceasefire before Russia shits all over whatever was agreed to and attacks Ukraine again.
So we must keep the support for Ukraine. The West must stand united against this tyrant and his delusional ideas. Remind him of reality. We must stand with Ukraine until the bitter end.
Western states need to wake up and begin treating Russia as a hostile power instead of a sometimes adversary they still want to do business with. And if the West hopes to counter Russian efforts to destabilize democracies, they need to start addressing, or strongly refuting, the talking points the far right is using to prop up the power base. It's time for the world's liberal democracies to show strength instead of being branded as weak, complacent, and overly permissive of forces that seek to destroy them from within.
And punishing people compromised by Russia.
As if Republicans would ever punish their own.
As if anything bad would ever happen to any U.S. politicians. Other than Kennedy.
Tell me again what happened to that Al Franken guy? And he wasn't even doing anything fucked. As with most things, there are serious shortcomings, but it's not a both sides suck issue. One side simply refuses to police itself. The George Santos thing was a fluke, and even that barely passed, which is nuts. Those are just idiot Democrats, throwing Al under the bus to appease gope dicks and thinking the rules of the game hadn't changed.
The big risk from Russia is politically, not militarily. They cannot take on Europe at the moment, no matter what happens in Ukraine. Russia will sow discord in the West, prop up far-right candidates who are anti-EU and anti-NATO, break up alliances, and only then can they start thinking of taking more and more territory. And in that respect, they are a very big threat.
Assuming Trump becomes president, it's not just military support for Europe and Ukraine that he could pull, but removing all U.S. sanctions on Russia would give Russia a lot more room to produce and gear up. Of course, no one seriously thinks Russia could beat Europe even without U.S. involvement and with U.S. sanctions undone. We should be ready for the possibility that Trump U.S. pulls support for Europe, frees up money for Russia, Putin mobilizes hundreds of thousands more troops and cheap drones and weapons, and calls Europe's bluff on the Baltics or Moldova. Will Europe push back and eventually defeat Russia? Sure.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.